Good morning, welcome to Ag Talking Raw, where I talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. Yeah, I got a couple things on my mind. Um, I woke up late today. I woke up a little bit after 6:30, which I don't know. Lately, I've been waking up about that time anyway, just because I've been working so late at night. Still drink my one cup of coffee. That'll get her going. So let's see. What do we really want to talk about today? Well, the crops are just about in here. I should be done, but I'm not done. I still got a couple of things I need to get done. I'm planting through hay, which makes things slower than normal. And because I'm pretty much a one-man show on this operation, it takes a little bit more time. I only have Timothy on the weekends to spray. The rest of the week he's running truck because I don't have a truck driver anymore. So it's just me and him, and he's took up the reins on the truck driving side of it, which is really good. Proud of him there. But still, it's a stressful job, and I'm not too excited, or excited if he gets up late or whatnot. And doesn't get back until a little later. And I just work a little later at night. So I'm planting corn, and then, when I get a couple hundred acres of corn planted, then I go back and spray it, which takes a couple of days anyway. Yesterday I finished up getting sprayed the corn that was already planted, which is good because I'm certainly, I have 15 acres of corn to plant. That's it. I got the popcorn in, and I got the sweet corn in, and today I'm probably just going to hit them with Roundup one last time. Just hit that because I'm having a hard time getting a good kill on this ground. But I'm just going to go ahead and smack that with Roundup and call it a day. The sweet corn is Roundup ready, but the popcorn is not, and the grass was so incredibly tall and thriving because of all the good stuff that I put on. The compost is just incredibly, it just makes the ground incredibly healthy. Throw a little bit of nitrogen on with that stuff, and holy smokes, it's like hellfire, man. That stuff grows like hell. It gets thick as hell, and it's really hard to kill it. So I knew that this was going to happen. I knew that I would be going back into the soybeans for sure, and corn as well. But hey, I do have about 100 acres of soybeans to get in the ground, and we are running out of time. It is June 13th. I kind of would like to have those in the next couple of days. I just haven't decided exactly where I'm going to put them. I should just shit and get off the pot and be done with it and get them in the ground. I can put my wife to doing that, and that would take a little bit of stress off of me. It's just, I don't know. I'm going to bump up the seed rate, and I got a couple of little spots that I need to go in and doctor up that the deer have hit, and, no big deal. Just no big deal there. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah, so we could talk about the, what is going in the ground, what isn't going in the ground, the weather events around the country, and, is there going to be enough food? Because I know there's a lot of people that are wondering, are farmers actually doing their job? Are the farmers getting, the crops planted? I watch Millennial Farmer once in a while. I haven't watched the last couple of videos that he's made, so I don't know if he has gotten all of his corn or soybeans in. His corn, I do believe, should be about knee-high by now. And the last I saw that he still had acres to go. Just weather events, and of course, the timing. And we've been fighting the same battle. My corn should have been in 2-3 weeks ago and up and going, but because I was planting through a hay crop, I had to wait a little longer because the moisture holds in the ground earlier. Now it dries out very quickly because the hay is, still actively growing. I know there's a lot of people want to know why I haven't cut the hay off and baled it, or, killed it off earlier than what I'm doing. And the whole plan with that is to not, don't kill it for at least 2 to 3 days after you plant. And there's a reason for that. I think I've explained it. I know there's a lot of people that don't want to hear about regen agriculture and stuff like that, but that's really some of the steps that I've taken to cut my fertilizer costs down to what they are, which is a lot less than they would be if I went and took the hay off. Because when you take something away, you have to replace it. Now, the things that most farmers really today don't understand is replacement of those nutrients, or the nutrients that you're putting down. How much do you really need versus how much is actually available? And, nobody wants to be short on nutrients. Neither do I. I want enough P and K and enough nitrogen to grow a crop, a good crop, not just some, oh my God, who's that idiot farmer crop? I really want my crops to look good, because if they look good and I put them in for less, then I've made more money. And that's the whole name of the game, is to make money, feeding the world. I know there's a lot of people, city folk out there that just don't understand how that corn becomes food for them. They just don't understand it. They don't put 2 and 2 together to figure out that corn feeds cows, chickens, and hogs. That's what it does. Cows, chickens, hogs, goats, sheep, and stupid horses that nobody eats here in the United States, even though I would eat a horse. There's a lot of meat in a horse. It doesn't bother me at all to do it. I've had horse. I had horse in Belgium. There was a restaurant that we were in, and it said, they didn't call it horse. It was called something else, but it was horse. Beautifully flavorful meat. It was great. So, and I would eat a horse again. No problem. So, anyway, I don't know why it's sacrilege here. You can't do it. Well, you can, I guess. They did lift that law. There was a law against eating horses for slaughter, slaughtering horses, but it's not there in place anymore. So, but anyway, that's where corn, soybeans, wheat. Well, wheat goes into bread production. Bread, hard winners. We have soft red wheat, which I believe goes to bread, and hard wheat goes into pizzas and pretzels and things like that. So, and that's direct ground and fed to human beings, people. Corn, not so much. Soybeans, nobody goes out and says, hey, I want some roasted soybeans to eat today. I mean, there's a few people that do. It'll make you poop good. I have an allergic reaction to them. Well, not an allergic reaction. My eyes, it's just a reaction. They say it's not an allergic reaction. They just say it's a reaction. It causes my eyes to swell shut, and they get glued shut. I can't even see. So I can't eat soybeans that way. It's always been that way. Legumes. Peanuts give me a headache. I'm sure soybeans would give me a headache now too. Certain types of sweet corn give me a headache, like the corn that I'm growing. Sweet corn that I'm growing, I can't eat that. That'll kill me. But the popcorn should be good. There's no sugar in it, so it's the sugar and the way they have modified the sweeteners. The sweetness of the popcorn is why I can't, or the sweet corn I can't eat. It just gives me a crippling, debilitating headache, and I can't deal with that. Same thing with pineapples. Canned pineapple. If I get the old style pineapples that grow in the provinces of the Philippines, I can eat all the pineapple I want. But this new super sweet pineapples, can't eat that. Yeah, it's terrible. Terrible thing. I can't eat the foods I like to eat. Any kinds of preservatives, can't eat them. Just can't. I loved peanut M&Ms. I can't even eat regular M&Ms anymore. Dark chocolate M&Ms, can't eat those because they're made and processed on equipment that processes peanuts. So, can't do it. But anyway, yeah. There she is, my sexy wife. Shake it, shake it, shake it.
No.
She's so sexy.
I'm late.
She's late by 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does her morning prayer at 7 o'clock, and she's 2 minutes late because it's 7:02. So, will there be enough food? My guess is going to be no. And it's just an educated guess, just because what I see around my area, which doesn't much matter to the rest of the world. We are a very localized market. Lancaster County is where there's a lot of milk and pigs and chickens. Milk hogs and chickens, they go out towards Lebanon, Pennsylvania. That's where I sell my grain to now. Lebanon and Myerstown, that's where it goes. Out to not Gaiman's, but Wangers and the other place that I deliver into. What the heck is it? Risser Grain is now a Wangers affiliate, or they were bought up by Wangers. So if you use Risser Grain and you're watching this, that's Wangers. Of course, if you use Risser Grain, you already know that. But they come and they get it, and it goes into their mills or wherever they've sold it to whoever needs it. And I've done well through Risser Grain in the past, and I may even use them again. Sometimes it's too expensive for me to haul it at this point, and it's cheaper. They'll give me a price that's only like 10 cents off of what I can get from, the place that I take into at this point. And it's like, well, how the hell are they doing that? Well, it's volume, obviously, but still, they need the grain in certain places, so it goes. And I do have 20 some odd thousand bushels of corn in the bin, and 24,000 bushels of bushels of corn in the bin. It needs to get cleaned out. For a fact, it just has to get cleaned out, and that's just that. So why would I think that there's going to be a shortage of corn, soybeans, wheat, whatever else is grown, barley, whatever? I do believe that there's going to be a shortage, because not only have I cut my cost by limiting the fertilizer inputs, I'm doing it in a different way than most guys. Most guys are just saying, well, if it takes 650 pounds of 12-24-24 to grow a 200 bushel crop, plus the added nitrogen, we'll just limit our nitrogen to X, and then we'll take that 650 pounds, we'll drop it down to 450 or 500 pounds, because there has to be something left in the soil. And there is, there really is. She's so pretty. That's my pretty wife. Isn't she something? Anyway, you got a glimpse. Anyway, she's so pretty. Anyway, so by cutting those down, I don't think they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're actually going to find out that they're going to make more money that way, because there is such a thing as organic nutrients in the soil. And organic nutrients in the soil is what is converted from synthetic nutrients in the soil. Synthetic, or rock potash, rock phosphate. Those are inorganic, and they have to be converted to organic before it can go into the plant, right? So now I'm not going to talk crazy talk. I've talked enough crazy talk, and subscribers here are sick and tired of hearing about it. But all fertilizer that you put down, whether it be the liquid nitrogen, the urea, the ammonium nitrates, ammonium sulfates, those are all. Ammonium sulfate is more of an organic nitrogen than the nitrates are. Urea is more of an organic. Urea is a more organic form of nitrogen, even though it does go through that chemical process or that synthetic process. It still takes microbes to break it down. And that's why if I knew the information I know today, I would have never used a nitrogen stabilizer ever in my life, ever. Nitrogen stabilizers are microbicides, microbial killers. That's what it does. So when it kills off the microbes can't break down that nitrogen. Well, that's not a good thing, because microbes don't just break down nitrogen. They also break down phosphate, potassium, and all the other micronutrients that you need. They also do that. So when you kill them off, not only are you getting a lag in your nitrogen, you're also getting a lag in your fertilizers, because it takes those same microbes, and all the microbes, whether it be bacteria or fungus, mycorrhizal fungi, all that stuff. It takes all of those things working together to break down the full package that you've put down. Now, as soils become deader, and I guess that's probably not a word, but more dead over years of using fungicides, insecticides, and all these other funky things, you are limiting what's alive in your soil. And fungicides are probably the worst to put on your soils, because that kills the rhizosphere. Heavy tillage. I love to get a plow out. I love to plow, and I love to work the ground, and I love to get my hands in the soil and, just take a look at it and just do what I do. The crazy thing is that kills the rhizosphere. I think vertical tillage machines are probably the easiest and least disturbing way of working your soil. And I was going to buy one of those this spring and opted not to. I may purchase one anyway, sell the disc, sell the plows, sell all that other stuff, and just go get a vertical tillage machine for a one pass run over the intended cover crop, just on a straight blade, 0 degree. I will buy the Great Plains. And it would be good for breaking up stalk material, not even burying them, just chopping them down and adding the cover crop that I really would like to add to my program. And it will do that very efficiently and effectively. And it won't disturb the soil so much by allowing so much oxygen into the soil that the microbes have an explosion and then die off. You're going to have a stimulated rhizosphere because of the oxygen that you're putting in there, and it may inhibit a little bit, but minimal disturbance is really what you're looking for. You don't want to go too fast with it, because you don't want to tear that soil up. You just want to cut slots in it for water infiltration, and you want to size your residue and to put down a cover crop seed. That's what I want to do. Now, that's not full tillage. That's just breaking it down. Now, with the like a roller crimper in the spring, I think that a vertical tillage machine would probably, a true vertical tillage like the Great Plains Turbo Max, I think that would lay that rye down, or that cover crop down enough, and it's wide enough for my corn planter and my grain drill that I could just do a good job, laying that down and softening that soil up just enough, just fracture that top part of that soil enough to add to plant through. I'm not 100% sure that that's what I'm going to do, but it's looking like that's probably what I'm going to do. And that'll allow my secret sauce to get in there, which works wonderfully, by the way. And it'll allow the secret sauce to get in there, and it will allow good infiltration of the much needed rainwater that we need, and also not destroying the cover that I put there. You don't want it to break down too fast. You need that to be armor on top of the soil, and that's what I'm looking for, is that armor on top of the soil. And I hate saying armor because it's a Gabe Brown term, and personally, I don't like the way Gabe Brown talks. He talks with an arrogance, like, I've done this and this is the way it needs to be done. I'm more of a outside of the box thinker. Is it right? I don't know. Is it wrong? I don't know. Is it somewhere down the middle of the road? Probably is. But anyways, to armor the soil, in his words, I just call it biomass or organic residue. To keep that organic residue on top of your soil is to prevent surface compaction from heavy rainfall. Okay, so a raindrop falls anywhere from 18 to like 28 miles per hour. Each one of those little drops is like a little jackhammer. And you know, you ever wonder how when you plow your fields, roll them out with a roller harrow? And I see that that is now a thing to do. I see these guys running these great big rollers across their field, smashing down rocks, which I love the idea. The problem is it makes a perfectly flat surface where the rain water can just and smash that into the ground, and then you'll get an inch thick crust that soybeans and corn have a really hard time emerging through. But if you have a cover crop on top of it, that it's, well, just think of it as my finger, so it hits that. And when water hits a finger here, it comes across, hits the next finger, and then it slowly drips down into the soil. Well, in nature, the way nature was intended, it really does slow that raindrops down. And if you go into, say, the woods or into a fence row where there's a lot of weeds, and you go to pull a weed out of the ground, you pull it up, and then the dirt just goes flies off the ground. But if you off of the root system, and there's a hole where you can reach your hand down into and pull up this nice crumbly aggregated soil, which is what you really want. You don't want that hard compaction. And last night I was digging around in the cornfield that I planted over top of those fried beans, and I think I would break my knife off in that soil. It is that hard. We haven't had tremendous amounts of heavy rain, but we've had some rain, and in those fields are hard as hell. The organic matter is below 3. No matter what I put in there, I just put lime in there, and I think that's what's reactivated some of the herbicide from last year and has caused the damage to the soybeans. That's what I'm thinking. So I have that, and I have the I mean, I've been fighting this thing, and then of course I sprayed, and the Callisto. Somebody says, oh, well, Callisto is a bleaching agent. Well, I got a lot of bleached soybeans, thank you. There is. And it is hanging in from last year as well, because there's a farm that I sprayed that, well, all of them have bleaching on the leaves. I think they'll pull through. It's just gonna be a long, tough road. So we'll see. I mean, maybe my soybeans won't amount to a fiddler's fart. You know, I might have wasted a bunch of money. And of course, then what do? You know, just plant into the green growing hay fields and see how it goes. Because those beans, buddy, those beans look really, really good. So anyways, by armoring your soil, you're preventing surface compaction, and you are also creating a shield from the sun, which the sun bakes that soil. And once that soil gets too hot, it starts to kill off your microbial activity. That's why if anybody's ever noticed a soybean field that's planted, say now or 2 weeks ago, if you're a little bit south of here, and you plant it through wheat stubble, like they do down in North Carolina, it's amazing how fast those soybeans grow. But where they work the soil, where they work the ruts in, those beans don't seem to take off as well. There's a reason for that. And then there's the lag, okay? Growing soybeans over the years in my life, soybeans are kind of funny. When you plant no-till into, say, corn stalks, there's no lag. Those beans just come up, they turn green, and they grow, and they continue to grow. But beans on beans or full tillage beans, there seems to become a lag. They'll get up about yay tall, 6, 7, 8 inches, and then they kind of freeze. They're like stuck there, and they grow very slowly. And then when they do reach a canopy type thing, once they canopy, then boom, there's an explosion in growth. And I'm sure anybody that grows soybeans, at least locally here, has noticed this. If you haven't noticed it, you really haven't paid too close of attention. So what is happening with that lag is that the soil is getting so incredibly hot on really hot springs, like we're not having right now, but incredibly hot springs. There's that lag because there's a kill-off in the microbial activity, and then the soybeans are not getting fed the way they need to be fed. So yeah, so that's another reason to have your armor on your soil, or your residue on the soil, to prevent that. And rye after corn, if you're going to put soybeans in after corn, rye after corn is a wonderful way of creating a nutrient bank, drying out your soils quickly in the spring, because they do, and sequestering that nitrogen that you don't want in your soybean fields. You don't want nitrogen for soybeans. You want your soybeans to produce their own nitrogen. And then as the rye breaks down, or this hay crop that I have is breaking down, it is producing the nitrogen along with the nodules that have formed on the soybean plant. And then it will grow. It'll put on nodes and just grow like hell. And you'll have lots of soybeans, probably on average of 10 bushels to the acre more by planting into some form of a cover crop with soybeans that sequesters nitrogen, not makes nitrogen. You don't want to put them into a hairy vetch or into clover or anything like that. And there's guys that do it, and they're like, wow, my beans look great. But then when they go and combine them, it's just an average, 40, 45 bushel yield. Here in New Jersey, I think the average is 18 bushels to the acre. As crappy as that sounds, it is what it is, due to a lot of different factors here. But yeah, so anyways, back to the topic at hand and food shortages. If people like myself have cut a lot of fertilizer out of their program and they're used to running fertilizer and they're not using the Regen Ag model or an attempt at it anyway. Not saying that what I'm going to do is going to produce any bumper crop or anything. I'm just saying that it is a good way to reduce my yield, or not, reduce my yield. It's a good way to reduce my input costs and still achieve a decent yield. But there's guys out there that are like, look, if I put this in and I don't get it back, I'm bankrupt. And then there's the guys that say, you know what? Throw caution to the wind. Bought that $1,200 a ton, $1,300 a ton fertilizer, $1,000 a ton fertilizer, threw it on the ground, and they're just praying to God for weather and a bumper crop, and their profit margin becomes either so thin or collapses on them, and they're going and talking to the banker because they over-purchased their fertilizer, in which they think that fertilizer is gone. And it isn't gone. It isn't gone. If you don't know, all that very expensive fertilizer that you put on, it's there. Some of it does become, it does wash away if you get deluges of rain and there's not enough cover to hold it in place for the microbes to break it down for the following year, for the next year, the following year, and you can have those issues. But you're only getting out of that, say, 600 pounds of 12-24, 24, whatever your blend is. I think I was using a 10, 23, 23, 5 sulfur, and there was boron that I had added in for many years into some of the stuff that I had done. And also, I did for my hay crops, and that stuff is there. It's just when you take the hay crop off, you remove a lot of the organic nutrients that are there. By not removing it, you are conserving 80 pounds of phosphate or potash. Untold number of phosphate, I don't know. Phosphate is in the seed. Seed breaks down slower. That's where my secret sauce comes in, to break that down faster and easier, and keeps feeding the microbes through the hot and thin times, when there's not as much root exudates. So that's my theory on that one. And it's not a Gabe Brown theory. That's a pot grower's theory. If you want to know how to grow things efficiently and effectively and produce higher yields, go to the pot grower forums. And yes, the pot grower forums. And I do not grow pot. I do not agree with growing pot. I do not agree with people that smoke pot in any way, other than if you're dying of cancer or have some other issues that marijuana can help you with in a different form. But recreational marijuana use is not on any ticket for me at all. I find it to be foolish. But that's just me. But they do get government funding now, state government, not federal government. Federal government will not fund illegal activity because it is still illegal under the 1932 Act of whatever. Anyway, I think it's 32, maybe it's 36, whatever it was. It all came down with Prohibition, and when Prohibition was lifted, they didn't lift those things either. It might have been 34, who knows, back in the 30s. So the pot growers really do have some pretty good information on how to stimulate microbial activity in there, and I have used that along with an agronomist out of North Carolina and a national corn growing competition winner. I speak with him once in a great while, and I've spoke with him several times now over the last year, and he's like, oh yeah, if you do this and you do that, you do the other thing, you can make that fertilizer, you can stretch the fertilizer, make it more available to the plant by stimulating the world beneath your feet, that rhizosphere. If you get that rhizosphere stimulated and cranking and doing its thing, you can severely lower your fertilizer inputs. And I have, and I'm amazed as to what the corn looks like coming out of the ground, how quickly it came out of the ground with nothing but nitrogen on the soil, and it's growing quite well, quite rapidly through the hay crop, mind you, and that hay was 3.5 feet tall, and it's growing up through that. I did not roll it. I just let her rip. Let her rip, potato chip, and it's growing right along. You can row it now in the hay crop. Same with the soybeans. Things are looking really good, and I don't have any problem with slugs. People were asking me about slugs. I have no problems with slugs as of yet. So I'm not too worried about them because I did use liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen and slugs do not get along. So you still need to put liquid nitrogen on your corn. Put nothing on your soybeans. Nothing on your soybeans. Everything that should be when you're no-tilling like that is in the soil. It's there, and it will become available through the rotting biomass for your soybeans. And the secret sauce that I use will stimulate that as well. But that's just what I'm doing. I do think that nationwide or even worldwide, these high input costs into the grain production is going to create a higher demand, and John Q. Public is going to be paying a shit ton more for their food fiber, or yeah, their food fiber, fiber and fuel. They're just going to be paying more and more and more. And for those of you that are bitching about the fuel price, I bitched about the stimulus checks that we were getting. There was no need for stimulus checks. I didn't feel that the country needed a stimulus check because a stimulus check somebody has to pay it back, right? Somebody has got to pay it back. So for every dollar's worth of gasoline, so a tax on gas is, like it's 35%, I think, is 36% for a gallon per dollar. Not per gallon, per dollar. So as those gallons of gas become dollars, instead of like $2, they become $5. 35% of $5. Let me get my math out. I'm not that good with percentages. So there, 5.00 times 35% equals, that's $1.75 a gallon. Now, $1.75 a gallon goes to taxes, right? Taxes. My truck takes 35 gallons. We times that by $1.75. I pay $61 in taxes. So $61 in taxes. If I fill my truck up once a week, that times that by 4. That's $245 a month, right? $245 a month. We haven't gotten stimulus checks in a while, which is a good thing. But if you times that by 33 million people, times 33, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow. See that number? That's 1 month's worth of taxes. If they all bought 35 gallons of fuel once a week. Not everybody does that. But still, I can't even tell you that number. That's trillions. Anyway, yeah, so there's your stimulus money getting returned to the government. Yeah, there's your stimulus money getting returned to the government because that's what they truly want. They want a couple of things. They want you to buy electric cars, which take more fuel to produce than a regular, more fuel to produce an electric car and fuel an electric car than buying a regular conventional gasoline powered car. Because a gasoline powered car, right, it takes fuel to make the plastics, it takes fuel to make the steel, the aluminum, the copper wires, and all that other stuff that goes into the car, and you buy one battery. That's lead, L-E-A-D, lead. But lead is readily available. That is, if you don't know what lead is, it is decayed uranium. That's what it is. Ancient decayed uranium. Depleted uranium is what comes out of a nuclear power plant. That's what they use in armor because it is denser than decayed uranium. This is depleted uranium. And why it's denser than what lead is, but that's what they use for penetration into during war in tanks and tank munitions and things like that. So, maybe got a little education today. Copper is also prevalent within a lead mine. There's like levels of this stuff. Now, don't ask me why, but they're generally found together. But so in an electric car, you take the same cost to produce that car in steel and plastic, and aluminum and copper and rubber, because you're still making rubber. Now, you're not getting natural rubber out of Vietnam in your tires. It's not happening. It's synthetic rubber, and that comes from, where does that come from? I don't think unicorn piss makes tires. I think it's, oil. Yeah, synthetic rubber is oil. It comes from oil. And those highways that are nice and smooth and don't go da-thump, 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 da-thump when you cross over the expansion joints, that's what do they call that? Asphalt or macadam, and that's made from, what is that made from? Oh, the refinery process. That's oil. Yeah, right. And the stone that's in it, I wonder if that's mined with electrical stuff. No, it takes diesel fuel, oil. Are you naked?
I was going to weigh myself, but okay.
You can't weigh yourself if you're naked. Anyway, you get a titty show on this show. Anyway, actually you get the full Monty. So yeah, there's oil in that too. And okay, so we need the power supply or the power storage bank. And that is not lead because lead is too heavy. Those are lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion. Plus there is the electrolyte, which is within there that makes those things work. And I'm not sure whether it's alkaline or whatever it is in those batteries. I think they're dry cell batteries, so it's some kind of alkaline. But anyways, all of this stuff has to be produced. It has to be mined. An electric car, it takes about 500,000 pounds of dirt to get enough lithium ion to produce the batteries to produce that car. Lithium ion was mined out of a country known to us as Afghanistan. Yeah, Afghanistan. We no longer occupy Afghanistan. There was a reason for that, but it takes about 500,000 pounds of dirt to make enough lithium ion to produce one car. And how do you get that lithium ion? Let's see. Diesel fuel oil. So your electric car then is put together with 500,000 pounds of dirt. Oh yeah, wait, it's got to be refined and you have to get the lithium ion out of there. And that shit ain't cheap, I'm telling you right now. It's not cheap. But then you've got the car and you can't just go and buy the fuel that it took to produce that car. You have to, you've got to plug into an electric power source. Now, an electric power source, is it coming from the sun? Is it coming from wind? Is it coming from water? Probably not. A portion of it may, but not in this area. and certainly not in like Connecticut, Massachusetts. That's all generated from, you guessed it, oil. So they generate these, the Tesla power stations are generated by oil. So they burn oil to produce electric, to charge your electric car. That took twice as much oil to produce that car than any other car on the road. That is the gasoline powered car. Would you like to weigh yourself? I can close this camera off. Oi! Go, you want to weigh yourself?
I was gonna weigh myself.
Well, if you want to, I can just close the camera off.
Alright.
Just subtract a pound.
Too late now.
Anyway. Yeah, so there's just a lot of oil that goes in.
You're still on?
I am.
You're crazy.
There's a lot of oil that is producing an electric car. And the funny thing is that those electric batteries, they don't last forever. And if you think you're going to run that electric car for 10 years, you're sorely mistaken, because any battery, whether it's a lead acid battery or a alkaline dry cell battery, it will not hold the same amount of energy from the day you buy it to the day you scrap the car. Matter of fact, it has a diminishing return. So you charge it fully today, the next time you charge it, it won't hold as much energy as it did as day one. So on and so forth until it's about 5 years old, and then you're no longer able to go your 400 miles. You're only able to go 185 miles. Well, 185 miles in the United States is basically nothing. Now, there's people that drive 185 miles in a day to go to work and back, and that's the truth. They just do it. By the time you're done, that car, by the time it hits 6-7 years old, you need a battery change. And that battery change, the last I heard, it can cost up to $6,000 for those batteries. $6,000. Well, $6,000 for batteries, and the car is still worn for the last so many years. It just isn't worth it. And then those batteries, that lithium ion, it's not non-recyclable. Nobody recycles it. So you now have a pollutant that you're going to be putting into a landfill somewhere, all in the name of green energy that isn't so green. So, and I'll end this last topic on what to do, what happens with a gasoline car or a diesel truck, diesel car. What happens to the hydrocarbons that come out of the tailpipe on that thing? So, if you listen to the bumbling buffoon down in the White House, and he's talking about CO2, high levels of CO2 in the atmosphere, the level of CO2 that you and I are breathing right at this very moment is 0.03%. 0.03%. It does get as high as 0.04%. 0.04%. Not 1.4%. 0.04%. It will get as high as 0.04% in the winter months in the northern hemisphere, because there's not a thing called photosynthesis happening here in the vast majority of the world, just in the southern hemisphere. Now, they might be at 0.03% down there, depending on the jet stream. I'm not sure, but I know it's somewhere between 0.03 and 0.04% of our air is carbon dioxide. Now, that poisonous carbon dioxide that's going to kill the world, that is going to destroy the planet, is the food for the food that we eat, right? So if you don't know what photosynthesis is, it takes that CO2, it converts it in through the plant through photosynthesis into oxygen, which me and you breathe. The only thing that takes oxygen that I know of that takes oxygen and creates CO2 is fungus, mushrooms, mushroom barns. Mushroom farms create CO2, carbon. carbon. And the other thing is the ethanol plants create a lot of CO2 in the process of producing alcohol, in which they are bottling that CO2 and selling it to Pepsi Cola, Coca Cola, and those other large soda companies to make the fizzy drinks that we all love to drink. That sort of thing. Yeah. So CO2 capture and for those uses, and or CO2 limiting CO2. We need CO2 in our lives. Trust us. What we don't need are other pollutants like unburned CO2, or unburned hydrocarbons, or whatever you want to call them, different elements. Now, when I was a kid, you could see the column of yellow that come off in New York City, and it was quite evident from home. So if you got an east wind, you would see that yellow come across the sky. If there's a coal-fired generation station or plant up north of us, Martins Creek or Merrill Creek or whatever they call it, Martins Creek, I think, you'd see a column of yellow come up out of that. You don't see that anymore. Those were coal-fired plants. But that actually gave us elements as farmers we needed. We needed the sulfur, we needed the CO2. And we do have the cleanest air ever. We do not have acid rain anymore. Those are other pollutants that were in the air that the government or the Green Party is not going to tell you about. Excuse me. But we do need a lot of those elements in our everyday farming practices. Now, if they think they're going to reduce the level of CO2 in our atmosphere, they are sorely mistaken. Unless they can put a scrubber on a volcano, they will never reduce that CO2 emissions. Carbon dioxide comes out of the ground at an exponential rate when a volcano erupts. And right now there's over 20 volcanoes that are burping, spitting, and farting into the atmosphere. My own is constantly spitting. Was that to all that just erupted the other day?
No, it's a different place in source of going. I forgot the name.
What do they call that one? It started with a B. Yeah, there's a volcano in the Philippines. It just shot ash 1.5 miles up into the sky and is spewed how many tons of carbon dioxide. But we did get manganese, magnesium, and zinc and sulfur out of that. So there you go. We got carbon dioxide up in the air. Now, our little cars that burn the oil, it's minute. One volcano puts more CO2 into the atmosphere than all the one day than all the cars on the road can put in a year. And sometimes you got 20 volcanoes erupting, sometimes you got 10 volcanoes erupting. So if you got 20 volcanoes erupting and they erupt for multiple days, just keep spewing and spewing and spewing, they're putting more carbon dioxide into the air than we can produce in hundreds of years. So stop thinking that you're going to save the planet by cutting CO2. You will actually, there's not an overabundance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. There just isn't. There never will be. As long as there is green stuff growing on this planet, you will always have a way of taking it out of the atmosphere. So I guess that's the end of my talk today. I don't know whether you gleaned anything from it or not. But if you are a non-farmer, you do not think that farmers, if you are a non-farmer and you're watching this, don't think that the farmers are the ones that are slipping this high price of food into your everyday lives where your fuel is too expensive. And if you voted for Joe Biden and you voted for those stimulus checks, Donald Trump gave stimulus checks out as well. Didn't agree with it then, didn't agree with it when Biden did it. I didn't agree with any of that. I don't think there should have been a stimulus check. I think that it shouldn't. The government does not own our money. The government runs off of our money. And when they give you our money back, we, the people, have to pay it back in one form or another. They don't tax food, but they tax the fuel that produces the food. My diesel fuel is somewhere around $5 a gallon for off-farm or for off-road fuel. $5 a gallon for off-road fuel. Isn't that crazy? $5 a gallon for off-road fuel. At $5 a gallon 2 years ago, under Donald J. Trump, it was $1.42, $1.42. So for all of you people that stand up there and say, "Oh, you farmers are going to get rich because of this," well, you take $1.42 a gallon for diesel fuel, and now turn it into $5 a gallon for diesel fuel, $5 a gallon for the same fuel to do the same operation, running the same equipment, if not bigger equipment. Some of these guys have gone crazy and bought huge equipment that burns a lot of fuel to produce a crop that is up 50%, but our input costs are up 3 times, 4 times in some cases with fertilizers and stuff. How much money are we making? How much money is a farmer making? And a farmer doesn't set the price that you guys pay at the grocery store for your beef, for your chicken, for your pork. They don't set the price for your vegetables that you're growing unless you go to an actual farm stand or a farm market where that farmer is producing and selling these goods to you directly from the field, which I would suggest you do. Support your local farmer. Don't support your food processor. And you may be going to have to deal with direct farm goods that way, because as of right now, since 2019, 32 food processing plants have exploded or burned down, unexplained explosions and burned down since 2019, 19, 20, 21, 22, in the last 4 years, 3.5, 4 years and the last one produced 3 million eggs a day. Eggs. Of all things, eggs. So when you go into the grocery store and you look at that dozen of eggs, and there's not nearly as many eggs on the shelf as there used to be, and they're not like $1.79 a dozen anymore. They're now $5 a dozen. It isn't because the farmer's making all that money. It's because there is a demand for it, and there has been a lot of food processing plants that have burned or exploded. Don't ask me why nobody's advertising that this is happening, but it is happening. And why is it happening, and who is responsible for it happening? There is no congressional hearings on why or who is responsible for this. All I hear about is a bunch of doofuses that went into the Capitol building on January 6th and in 2020, and how they are the biggest criminals ever to walk the face of this earth, but yet Portland and Seattle burned to the ground, and they're not looking for those people. Michigan, a lot of people died and were beaten, and some poor kid that defended himself with an AR-15 rifle gets prosecuted. And Amber Heard, who took a shit on Johnny Depp's bed while he wasn't home, we got to hear all about that. But nobody's talking about the food prices. Nobody's talking about why the inflation is so high. I'm here to tell you, ding, 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 you are paying back your stimulus checks. That's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Inflation, they overspent. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. And I talked for nearly an hour, and I didn't even get to finish my coffee. Now I did, and it was cold, and it was nasty. So, have a good day.